Good evening. Once again this Tuesday, we bless the Lord for having us in your homes. Every Tuesday at 8 p.m., we'll be on your screens, we'll be in your phones, on your Facebook page, in the YouTube, and on One Accord TV. Welcome to your favorite show, The Law and You. And today, to continue with our program, our guest is in studio and is ready for us. Karibu sana wakili Eliud. Say hi. How has your week been? And tell people something before we start.
Okay, thank you very much for having me on the show today. Asante pia wakili for the cup of tea today after this
At
meal.
least.
Yes.
Umekuwa ukimeza mate sana.
Umenipatia sapa na ukanipatia kachai.
Asante.
Yes.
We bless the Lord. We are making progress. My name is Kenneth Mbaabu from Kenya Mbaabu Advocates. And as from last week, we were talking on the issue of sale of land, buying properties. Na tukaongea mambo mingi, tukasema mashamba kuna private lands, community land, government land. Tukasema unastahili kufanya due diligence, the importance why we do searches. And we discovered last time that advocates don't tell you to do searches just kufurahisha ama kutafuta pesa, but it's because they want to ensure that whatever you are buying is legit. And I remember one thing that you told us last week is that just because we have started a sale transaction does not mean the transaction will be complete. And today I want us to get further, because now we were saying Tom and Mary were buying. Mary was buying land from Tom. So Mary has come to your office, you have done the search, and you have told him the search, yes, because we discovered the search is to show us if Tom is the owner, to tell us where that land is, and also to get a guarantee from the Ministry of Lands, from the land registry, that truly this is Tom's land. Now we are happy. We are happy on the prices that you have negotiated on. We want to do a sale agreement. And most of the times, you come wakili, you find these clients come and tell you, hapana, staki nini, staki mambo mingi, tu badilisha tu jina mbili hapo. Well, then we do the sale agreement. I would like people today to understand what are the contents of the sale agreement and why is it important?
Well, the content of the sale agreement is important because this is a guiding document that should help you transact the land. Land transaction does not take a single day or a week. It takes a process. It's a process. And for you to protect this process, you need to actually have a reference point that will help you know at what stage you are at. And so that's why you need to actually document first beforehand. When you and the seller and the buyer are still in good terms, you are still friends, and one of you is interested in the money, and the other person is interested in the soil. You need to actually document how the process will go. And so that is one of the advantages of having a sale agreement. The other one is in case the transaction does not end or is not completed, like what we said last week. The money that the person was expecting may end up not being available. So how do we terminate? How is this relationship going to be until I get my title in my name?
In your name?
Yes.
Yes. So I think that's very important. The sale agreement helps us in case, guides us how to complete the transaction, and also guides us how to exit the transaction in case we don't finally finalize or agree to it. So, if for purposes, I know we cannot enter into everything, but how does a sale agreement look like? What are the things that are in the sale agreement and why are they important?
Of the various clauses that are put there, or rather subtopics which are in the sale agreement, which are supposed to guide the parties. And so, the first thing that a sale agreement will have is the people who are buying the land.
The people?
The people, or the companies buying the land, because also companies have power to buy land and to sell land. And so, it will have the parties buying the land. And it is important to note that the parties, especially if it's a human being, death may happen. And so, you also need to note things to do with, in case the person is not present to complete the transaction, who shall complete the transaction? So we have people in succession law we call personal representative. or we have an agent who may be appointed.
Yeah.
So you need to actually indicate those people there, or you need to indicate a phrase that will help you complete the transaction.
Complete the transaction.
Secondly, a sale agreement has the price of the land and how the payment of the money will be made to the two parties. And so
and also the description of the property. I think we can go that before we go the money.
Yeah, there's a description of the property that you're buying, and then for how much are you buying this land, and when is the expected payment period. So you have to indicate these processes.
This process, before you go to the price, I think that's why people are very happy when it comes to money and land. Description of the property. I would like to remind people, sometimes if the description is not right and there's an issue of fight, you do not buy land in Mavoko area. Because, for example, if the plot I'm buying is in Mavoko area, then in the description, it reads maybe something like Malaba. The title number is different. That means if in case of a fight, you cannot do something we call in law, go to court for specific performance, because what you bought is not what is in this document. There's something you have told about money. So money, if it's 1 million shillings, are we paying all of it at once? Or what? I know every sale agreement has its own agreements on how people will be paid money. But basically, what is that common thing that we'll find when it comes to payment of
in the payment of the purchase price? Because you want to make sure that when you we mentioned that we need a consent from the board, land control board. You also, if it's a lease, you need to have rent paid for this property, up to date, rent and rates. Rates which are paid to the municipal government, or like currently we have a county government. And because in the process of transacting, you want to make sure that the person has already complied by making sure that they have paid for that. And if it's an agricultural land, that the person gets the land control board consent, then it is advisable for you not to pay the full amount, but to just give them a deposit that should actually help show that you're a serious purchaser. It's actually to just make sure that you're not losing on other clients, and to confirm that Tom is a serious buyer of this land. Let him put a deposit, and a deposit in most of the cases is normally 10%. You pay the 10%, and this will allow now the seller to process the other completion documents, which we have mentioned are the rates, rent, of the land control board consent. And then once we have that ready, there's a requirement then to update or contact you as a seller and as a buyer and tell you we are now ready to complete. Give us the balance of the purchase price as we exchange the original. Because you mentioned last time, people should not give original title deeds.
Originals comes last.
Yes, they come last. So
unless you are the person you are giving, you are depositing it to your advocate, but don't give it to the purchaser or who is getting that land. Some of the completion documents you have said, I think you have said the consents that we need, the rates, because if he has not done that, you will buy land and go pay for it. There are even people, like, for example, if you are doing apartments, they will ask for electricity bill to be paid, water bills to be paid, service charge to have been paid for it. If it's a property that someone is married, we need a spousal consent. Usiuzue shamba leo afu kesho bibi aseme mimi hapana siko nakubali shamba iuzwe. You also require, for example, if it's a company, maybe you can mention on a company the resolution of directors. Have they completed their returns at the company registry? Is there things like those? Do you have the photographs? Do you have the signatures? Have they signed the transfer document for them now to come and be ready? Another thing about the 10% deposit wakili, that is very important. The reason people pay 10% is that in case Mary that is not ready to buy that land, alikuwa anafanyisha Tom kile tunasemanga PE, amemfanyisha PE, Tom is allowed to retain the 10% if you are not ready. Because you came, we wrote an agreement. Ukasema you are ready to buy the land at 1 million. You gave me 100,000 to hold, or you gave my wakili to hold in trust. The moment you refuse to complete maybe in 90 days, 60 days, of 2 months that you had agreed, Tom has a right ya kukule 100,000 na kuuza shamba kwa mtu mwingine. Same thing, also Mary has a right in case Tom does not get the completion documents. Because remember we said, a sale agreement still lazima he go through. If it fails for Tom to bring the completion documents, pia anasai kurudishia Mary 100k yake plus interest hiyo pesa. So I hope people understand that. Then now you have talked about the completion documents. Is there something you want to mention on the transfer and why it's important now you start this process from an advocate's office?
Yes. Maybe I should mention that a sale agreement should actually have a clause on whose lawyer is acting on behalf of who.
Who, yeah.
Or do the parties have lawyers, and who are these lawyers? Because if you have an advocate, and this is something we discourage parties from doing, if you're buying land, please get your own legal advisor, independent advisor, because you don't want an advocate who is not looking at your interests. And therefore you have, if you have a buyer, you have already given your 10%, and the advocate is looking out for the seller's interest. And for them, once they have received a 10%, they dilly-dally take a whole year or 2 years before they actually hand over the completion documents. So it is important. And so you note down, because as advocates, we have a higher responsibility and duty, whereby if we fail to complete a transaction, it becomes a professional misconduct. And as a party who is interested in a property whereby it fails, you can actually lodge a complaint that will actually make me get either struck out or get even summoned for that kind of professional misconduct. But you've asked me about the
transfer document.
The transfer document. The importance of a transfer document is basically the document which actually is presented at the land registry.
At the land registry. Before you continue,
yes,
I wanted people to know this. You don't present the sale agreement to the land registry. Those are your agreements, because at that point, the sale agreement, in fact, sometimes it's called the agreement to sale. We have not sold to you the land. Actually, the government of Kenya recognizes the transfer document. And even if, and for the transfer to be effective, it has to be witnessed by an advocate at that point.
Yes.
And there's how they are drafted and prepared.
So this document will be drafted, prepared. Again, if you're using a professional now, they have a higher duty and responsibility, and that's why you need an advocate to act on your behalf and ensure that they do the transaction on your behalf. Because
on your behalf, yeah.
They also understand the nature of the land registries. And so once you have signed the transfer and the buyer has signed his part of the transfer, this document will be presented together with the rest of the completion documents at the land registry, and there are payments which will be made to the government, and upon payment of that, and remember, we are presenting also the original title deed
to the government now.
To the government, but the question is, who are you giving the original title deed to enforce the transfer? And that's why you need to have an advocate in place. Because if you lose an original title deed, I don't know whether you...
You know the process of recovering an original title deed. It's another process by itself.
Yes, it's a long, expensive process which you don't want to subject yourself to. Sometimes title deeds disappear and things happen. And so that's why you need a professional to do the actual work of preparation of the transfer and the presentation of your completion documents for the land registration to happen.
For the land registration to happen.
Yes.
So it's very important that now we get the completion documents, and even for the seller, so that by the time you don't want you want an advocate, Wakila said, have an advocate who is looking out for your best interest. You don't want a situation whereby the transfer has been lodged, the original title deed has been given, the land has moved to the next person, and you have not received your money. So umeanza makesi ya kukimbishana na pesa. We are taking a small commercial break, and as we are continuing, if you have questions on anything on the law and you on any topic on what we are talking about now or anything, please feel free. You can see the email on our screen. You can see the numbers on our screen. Shoot your question. We are here to answer all your questions. And we'll be back to continue on what are the salient features in a sale agreement.
Do you want to be a master of your money saving skills, or are you looking for a financial partner for your loan needs? Well, Ukombozi Sacco is your go-to financial partner for your growth and development. Register with us today and enjoy our saving products such as deposit account where you make monthly, weekly or daily contributions, Jenga Junior, travel account and Christmas account. Get affordable instant mobile loans via the USSD star 346 hash and other loan products like biashara loans, development, emergency, school fees loans, insurance and premium loans. Visit us in any of our offices countrywide. For more information, contact us on 0719 312 307 or 0716 130 884. Follow us on our social media handles. Ukombozi Sacco, together for a brighter future.
Welcome back to our show, The Law and You. We are still continuing tonight to listen and to understand what are the salient features in a sale agreement. Wakili, when we left you on the transfer issues. So when you are transferring, you have completion documents. Do we just go to the lands office, do everything, and then the government stands for us and gives us a new title?
No, the government has to construct roads and hospitals and pay politicians.
You have to give Kaisari what belongs to
teachers,
Kaisari. Yeah.
And the teachers have to be paid, and all the policemen that we have. And so, one of the ways that the government is able to do this is through collection of duty. And so, before you actually, as you hand over the final documents, you need to have the assessment done, so that depending on the value of the land, the buyer has to pay the stamp duty,
which is normally 4% of the value of the property.
Depending, is this an agricultural piece of land or a lease? So we have different percentages for different types of land. So for agricultural, you've said 4%, and for
there's the municipality and the agricultural.
Yes.
Municipality is 4%, agriculture is 2%.
It's 2%, it's lower.
Yes, it's lower. Yes. And also maybe on that money, these days we have something else, capital gains tax. So now the person selling, because when you bought this land, there were no roads, and you bought it at 1 million or 5 million. The government put roads, put security, put lights, brought a school, brought a hospital. And because of that, your land which was 5 million today is 20 million. So the government also requires you to pay capital gains tax between that 5 million to 20 million, which is around 15 million, and which is an average, I think, of 5%.
Yes.
So, and this is good because this is what builds our economy. And in other countries, it's higher. In other countries, it's lower. So that's an argument for another day. If what we pay, we get value for it. But that's what's supposed to happen. So we have seen the parties in the agreement, in the sale agreement. You have seen the money required, the description of the property. You have seen the completion documents, and that's where the elephant is, Kabisa. So what are maybe one or two other things you'd mention that you'll find in a sale agreement?
You're likely to find out an exit in a sale agreement.
If we don't agree, this is how we live.
We call it a termination clause, which should actually break down what you had earlier mentioned, that in case there's failure by the buyer, this is what he is going to lose in terms of the deposit he had paid. In case there's failure by the seller, this is also what he's supposed to lose. Or that he's supposed to refund the full
Amount,
deposit.
yeah.
And so you have that termination clause. You have, in case there's a dispute, you also have a way of how to deal with the dispute. Nowadays we have mediation.
Yeah.
We have this alternative
ADR,
disputes,
yeah.
ADR. And so you can go to an arbitrator and resolve your issues. And also you can go to court,
yeah.
and have your issues resolved. We also have provisions on the promises being given. There is an undertaking given whereby you are able to promise that the land is not on a public road, is not is no court order.
There's no threat.
There's no threat to that land. There's no wetland, and so you need such clauses to make sure that in case you come across that information,
in future,
yes, you are able to raise it up using this sale agreement and to recover back maybe your money that you had invested.
And also, I see in some of the sale agreements, it also talks about possession. At what point am I entering this land? Am I entering the land after paying the deposit, or am I entering the land after completing everything? And this is important because of the time. There are people who buy land and maybe you can put a clause or pay it in 2 years. And sometimes you are allowed, we endelea kukaa hapa, ukilipa pole pole. So it's very important because sometimes I've seen a situation whereby someone just gives a deposit, kesho ako pale kwa shamba anaambiwa hapana, anasema hapana lakini nimeanza kulipa, but the possession clause was clear that it will be at the end when you finish. The other thing I've seen is on the issue of advocates. Who is your advocate? And you mentioned that. It's advisable everyone to have their advocates. Have your separate advocate to be able to look out for you. And also in that is where it says you pay your advocate. Ampenani kusikia hiyo lakini nipeni mawakili wana. So they can be able to tusifunge ofisi. So yes, what other clause would be
there? Is
there?
a completion clause which dictates how long this transaction should take. It's very important to actually, the standard one is 90 days, which is 3 months. And that's why we have said this is a process. And there are situations, for example, when you're buying, let's say even an apartment, but it takes so long before you get some approvals. Especially if it's a new apartment, you need to get so many approvals, which may take so much time. And therefore, to cater for that, you need to actually have enough time, especially if you're the seller, to make sure that you are able to get these completion documents. Failure to which, again, this is why you need a lawyer. We are able to come back and do variations of this sale agreement to cater for the time period. You remember 2020 having COVID happen, which in legal terms we call it an act of God. Things which are unforeseen, are beyond human understanding. And so in case of such, that's why we also need a clause on how to deal with such activities. Because we don't know what eventuality which may not, tomorrow, maybe El Nino may come back or something, something which is out of our control. How shall we complete this transaction? And that's why this particular clause needs to be added on that sale agreement to protect the parties. Because you may have put down, let's say you are buying around your 10 acres, prime 10 acres for 100 million shillings. What happens to you, and you have already given a deposit of 10%, and this maybe there's an event that was out of control, like COVID-19, and people are no longer going to the offices. So it's important to have such clauses.
Such clauses.
Yes.
And then also, I think the most important thing is, the last clause is where people sign. Who signs? And this is where I find a lot of people being like, nimetumwa na mama yangu nitamsainia. Ama nimetumwa na mdosi wangu nitamsainia. Please understand, the last part should be the people who have been mentioned at the first part. And I remember there's a time you said, if it's a company, ensure the directors signing are the ones in the CR12. Because if it's me signing for a company, a big company that are around here, and I'm not a director, that transaction will be what people, I know Kenyans know it as null and void. Yeah. So that is another place which is very key, and that's the reason why even and the sale agreement is witnessed by an advocate. So usiseme nitakuja hapa na ndugu zangu wao ni witness hii sale agreement. Please let an advocate witness for you the sale agreement. Let an advocate be there for you.
Okay.
Yes.
What happens if a church is buying land?
A church.
Who signs?
The people who signed, and that's a very good question, because a company is the directors. If it's my land, it's me. For churches, it's the trustees. And they should also be registered trustees on behalf of the church. But I know sometimes maybe because of the trustees can donate that power. And I know most of the churches, what they do, they let the local pastor in that church sign the sale agreement that church A and B and C, we are buying land, these are we are paying for it. But when they go for the transfer, now the one which will go at lands, the trustees are the ones who sign. Because the trustees are the only people with the authority to own land on behalf of the church.
Where do they get the authority?
The trustees.
Yes.
From the trust deed.
Okay.
Yeah, because the church, when a church is registered in the societies just like Gor Mahia, and maybe our next discussion is, do you want the church to be the registrar of societies? There's that discussion that should the church move to a separate regime so that it can be able to have proper laws. Because when we were starting, and maybe there's a discussion for another day, is that when the church, the registrars, they think that the church is one place. But you notice most of the churches have branches. So you come and realize the way the Societies Act is done. It's one congregation, one return, but you don't understand now you have 1,000 branches. We have 10 branches in a church or 20. So that's why the reason why when it's a society, you have to register trusts in the name of that society, and now the trustees, who are most of the time the bishops or maybe the people who have been appointed, can be able to sign the transfer documents for and on behalf of the church.
Okay.
Wakili, on the issues of land, we can talk and talk until the chicken come home to roast. Is that what they say? Even though Wazungu wanasemanga. So what we want to maybe what's the final thing can we say about land and buying properties? And when we talk about land, is buying a house, buying an apartment, buying shamba. What is the most important thing would you tell people?
The most important thing for the people to understand is that the process of buying property is a process. It is not a single day event, because sometimes you find people in a hurry and they actually want to sign all the documents within the same day and pay the full amount on the same day. But it is a process which I would encourage people to be patient and enjoy that process. Sit through that process. Make sure that you actually get independent legal advice, because different transactions in different places have different processes. And so if you're buying land, let's say in Kakamega, it will be very different from buying
in
land
Nairobi.
In Nairobi or somewhere
or beach in
Lamu, beach plots.
It's a different scenario.
Yes, and so you need to enjoy the process, do your due diligence, and ensure that you actually have the right people doing the process, helping you in the transaction. So get proper surveyors, get a good lawyer, and you're safe.
You are safe.
Yes.
Wakili has said, get professionals, and one thing, enjoy the process. Wacha haraka. In fact, what I find with people, inakuanga joto ya pesa. Unajua uko na joto ya pesa na kuna shamba, unataka hiyo shamba leo. Tafadhali. When it is come to money, wacha mioto. Wacha haraka. Let's go step by step, because land, there's something about land. And I think that we go back to the Bible. When even Cain and Abel, when they killed each other, it was issues on land, because when you remember, it was about someone farming, another bringing animals, and one equal better than the other one. And even God told, when he was chasing Adam and Eve, he told them, you go till and eat from the land. So land is very important, and that's the reason why land is very emotive. And that's the reason why today in court, most of the cases are on issues of land. In fact, the majority on land, the other issues is on family. Because land and family issues, it touches on the heart. Today you may find someone even 10,000 acres fighting for 50 by 100. And he has 10,000 because it's very emotive. So ladies and gentlemen, let's enjoy the process of the land. We have been your people today in the law and you. And before we finish off, Wakili, you're on social media accounts. You can name your social media accounts if someone wants to follow you and maybe to learn something. Are you on Instagram? Are you on Facebook? Are you on Twitter? You can be able to mention them. Okay.
At Wakili Ngugi
yes.
on Twitter and Eliud Ngugi on Facebook.
Wakili Ngugi on Twitter, Eliud Ngugi on Facebook, Kenneth K. Mbaabu on Facebook, and Kenneth Mbaabu on Twitter. May God bless you. See you next Tuesday as we have another discussion.